This video is all about design issues. The design issues help the designer keep their design on track to ultimately create a successful piece. This video will look at 5 different design issues: function, performance, safety, market, and aesthetics. We'll start with function, where you need to know about primary and secondary functions. The primary function is the job that the design ultimately does as its main job. If we think about a mobile phone, certainly the early mobile phones, the primary function was to make calls. Secondary functions is everything else it can do. And in an early mobile phone, that wasn't very much. So the secondary functions would be, sending texts and playing Snake. So the primary function is the main job it does. The secondary function is every other job it does. If we think about mobile phones these days, the primary function is no longer to make calls and instead to do things like browse and use social media. The secondary functions of a mobile phone these days are vast. If we have a think about a bus stop, have a think to yourself, what is the primary function of a bus stop? The primary function of a bus stop is to tell the buses where to stop and the users where to stand. But if we have a think about the secondary functions of the bus stop, it can provide a shelter, it can provide a seat, it can provide, a timetable, perhaps advertising on the sides, tells the which buses stop there and so on. So the primary function of the bus stop tells the buses where to stop and people to stand. Secondary function is everything else that the bus stop can do. So that's function in a nutshell. We're now going to move on to another design issue, which is called performance. And performance really focuses in on how the product does the job and ensuring that it's fit for purpose. So let's have a look now at performance. So we can break performance down into several areas. The first one we're going to look at is fitness for purpose, and I'm going to draw a diver's watch. Fitness for purpose, as the title suggests, means that if a product is not fit for purpose, it's not able to carry out its primary or secondary function. It's simply not designed well enough to be able to perform its tasks. If we think about a diver's watch, which is not fit for purpose, it wouldn't be able to deal with the depths, the waterproofing, it might not be able to tell you how deep you are or oxygen levels left and all that sort of stuff. Clearly this would be a very big problem for a watch which you're relying on for this information. So fitness for purpose is simply, is the product itself suitable for the job that it's been designed to do? So we're going to fill this one up with a bit of water to show that this watch is certainly not fit for purpose. If we move on to maintenance, the key example I like to go to when we consider maintenance issues is the washing machine. This is because a washing machine is actually quite a straightforward piece of machinery. It's got some electronics on board. You can set different functions, but ultimately it's a big rubber band usually driving a drum. If the rubber band breaks, how easy is it to maintain that product? Can we get a new rubber band from the manufacturer? Are they going to charge an awful lot of money for an engineer to come out and fix it? Or are they designed so that the user themselves can fix these products? Now, depending how well the manufacturer answers these questions determines how green the product is. So the maintenance issues is how easy is it to fix and replace, or is the user more likely just to chuck the thing out and replace it with a new one? This is clearly not a very green aspect. And finally in performance, planned obsolescence. It's a fancy title, but basically obsolescence means when something becomes obsolete. And if we plan for that to happen, it means that the designer is actually adding in some part to the design which is not designed to last forever. If we think about the early iPods, you're maybe lucky to get 18 months to 2 years of constant use out of these before they broke. they would run out of battery because the battery itself was unable to last for more than about that length of time. The options to the consumer was replace the battery at about £200 or buy a new iPod for about £200. The user in this instance is more likely just to buy a new one. Similar issues happened with early versions of the Xbox, and specifically the Xbox 360. If we look now at safety, if I can spell safety, there we go. Safety of products is obviously paramount importance. And in Britain, as in any country in the world, there'll be certain safety requirements that every product has to meet before they can be put on the market. The symbol that you see on the right-hand side is the British Standard symbol. Any product that we make has to withstand British standards. So for this hard hat used on a building site, there'll be certain impact resistances, crushing resistances, and so on that the hard hat has to meet before it's able to be sold. The CE stands for Certified European, and again, if you want to sell your product in the European Union, you're going to have to meet these standards. Crash test dummies are used to test our products, such as cars, to ensure that they are safe to use and meet safety requirements. If we move on to market now market is a really broad design issue. There's lots of elements to it. The first one of which we're going to talk about now, which is technology push and market pull. Now, it sounds more complicated than it is. Technology push, as design advances throughout the ages, technology hopefully gets better and better, and the products that are created are more and more desirable. So technology push happens when new technology is developed and it needs to be pushed onto the market. The market may not even know it exists, for example, for MP3 players. Once the market gets a feel for the new technology, they want more, and they're hungry for more and more improvements. This is called market pull, where suddenly you have this tipping point. The consumers like the new technology that's being pushed onto them, and they desire more and more, i.e. market pull. When we're actually trying to sell products, we have these 4 Ps, which you might have heard of in business. It stands for product, price, place, and promotion. Whenever we're marketing a product, we need to consider these 4 Ps. The product is the product that you're selling. The price is how much it's going to cost. You might want to compare that to competitors. Place is where it's going to be. And promotion is how are we going to sell it. The other thing that I'm going to just touch upon here is the product life cycle, where we consider the introduction of products from their peak sales all the way through to decline of sales. The product life cycle itself will be considered in another video. The final part of market that you need to be familiar with is branding. Now, branding is very important. A brand, and a successful brand, means that a designer and a design house can start to charge more money for that product. An easy example to get your head around is maybe an Adidas jumper. So an Adidas black jumper with a small white logo on the chest is going to cost more for that consumer than a standard black jumper. This is to do with peer pressure and people expecting it to be a better quality perhaps. But it's really good for driving sales. A strong brand image allows the design house to do that, drive sales. The final design issue that we're going to cover today is aesthetics. And put simply, aesthetics is how a product looks. The designer will ensure that the product itself looks a certain way to fit the job that it's designed to do. So it might look modern, sleek, old-fashioned. These are all aesthetics qualities. Colour, shape, style, texture, contrast are the terms that you need to be able to refer to when discussing aesthetics. The colour is, put simply, how have they used colour? Have they used red buttons to make them stand out and to give the consumer an idea of what the product does? How have they used shape? Is it very blocky and angular, or is it sleek and smooth and curvy? Style is modern, retro, old-fashioned. Texture, again, is it sleek, smooth, or is it kind of rough and ready and perhaps has a textured pattern to make it easier to grip or hold? And then finally, contrast is is there any contrasting shapes or styles or textures used within the product itself? So within this little games controller, we have contrasting shape because we have contrasting circles against a square or rectangular body. We've also got contrasting colours from the black direction pad, the red buttons and so on. This tells the consumer how to use the product. So that's a very brief run through of the design issues. Hopefully you found that useful. Thanks for watching.